All right, I'd like to welcome you to this meeting of Council. This meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of the recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land, which now comprises the municipality of Indigo Shire. We pay respects to the elders past and present, and celebrate, respect their continuing culture and acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and ability. Do we have any apologies or leave of absence? Declarations of conflict of interest? Item 5, community and council achievements. I'd like to head that off regarding Jenny O'Connor. Jenny O'Connor resigned from council on the 14th of February, just a very short time ago. Jenny O'Connor was a very passionate councillor and was a great representative of her community, not only in council but also in state and federal governments. Her contributions will be missed, and we wish her all the best for the future. I'd also like to mention Michael Phipps, who was a host of the National Rodeo Championships held at Chiltern. That event was live streamed around the world and really put Chiltern on the map. Councillor Horn.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to acknowledge the input of a whole lot of people at our recent flooding event in Rutherglen. The SES, the CFA, the local fire brigade joined in, the police, the Indigo Shire indoor crew. Also, there are people like a local cafe owner who opened up his doors at 2 o'clock in the morning to serve coffee and food to the emergency workers. Other people dug trenches and filled sandbags and assisted their neighbours and friends. You know, these people left their homes, their families, their animals to come out and help others. And I would really like to acknowledge the wonderful work they did. And it was also the bloke down the road who was digging trenches in the middle of the night to save the water banking up and destroying properties. The people that reclaimed rubbish bins that were washed, full rubbish bins that were washed, you know, for yards and yards away. And also the support staff who provided assistance for accommodation and all the other services. And I would like, if possible, for a letter of gratitude and appreciation to go to those people, and where applicable, a personal letter to Indigo Shire staff, such as the outdoor staff and the support staff internally, to thank them for their efforts, which were really much appreciated.
You have a list of the names of those persons that you'd like council to write to?
Well,
otherwise it might be a bit difficult. Names, I'd hate to leave.
But just the agencies and the people, as I say, the staff members. I know that there were some local staff members who attended, you know, in the middle of the night. So you would have those details, I think.
Yes, we've got that.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Councillor Horn.
Thank you.
Item 6, condolences, Councillor Croucher.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Kigunya and surrounding areas were saddened by the passing of Nolene Wallace on the 10th of January 2022. Well known to everyone, Nolene was an inspiration and a role model for many women and girls, paving the way for more women to be taken seriously in traditionally male-dominated areas. She was the first ever female member of the former Yakandanda Shire in 1975, serving 16 years in total, including 2 terms as Shire President, another first. She was a community member of a number of committees in the North East, which included North East Catchment Committee, Murray-Darling Basin Committee, Wodonga TAFE Council, Upper Murray Regional Library, Upper Murray Family Care, Upper Murray Northeast Ag Care, Red Cross and Land Care. Even before she passed away, Nolene was an active community member, particularly in her local church and local Kaganya activities. Nolene was well loved and respected member of the community and will be missed. Rest in peace, Nolene Wallace. Can we send a response to that under seal? Is that?
Would you like to move a motion to that effect, Councillor?
Yes, can I move a motion that we send a letter of response under seal to Nolene Wallace's family? Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Horn. Is anybody against? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Item number 7, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. The recommendation is that the following minutes be confirmed. The minutes of the council meeting held on 14 December 2021 is published on the council's website. 2, the confidential minutes of the council meeting held on 14 December 2021 as provided to councillors under separate colour. Somebody like to move by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Shepherd. Is anybody against? Carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? No. Item number 8 is open forum. The governance rules currently require the questioner or their representatives to be present in the meeting. Given the meeting is being held electronically without opportunity for a public gallery to attend in person, it is proposed that standing orders be suspended to dispense with this requirement, and that the chair read any questions put to the meeting without the questionnaire being present. The current requirement for questions to be received by council by no later than 5 p.m. would remain unchanged. The recommendation is that standing orders be suspended to allow the questions to be read by the chair without the questioner being present. So, recommendation, moved by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Croucher. Is anybody against? Carried. We have received 3 letters, three questions for open forum. The first one is from Robin McLeish. He's only got a 2-sentence intro. Indigo Shire Council seeks to increase visitor numbers in our towns and their safety is paramount. We now see 40-kilometre speed limits introduced in Rutherglen, Yakandanda and further out at Wangaratta and Wodonga. The first question is, will council initiate contacts with the relevant authorities to introduce 40-kilometre speed limits to all of the Shire CBDs? The Director, Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Robin, for the question. Look, I don't know the full background of the speed limits in the CBDs and what investigations may have gone on previously, but I'd be happy to refer the question you've raised to our Traffic Liaison Committee. So it meets probably on a 3-monthly basis, and there's other agencies that would also have input into the appropriate speed limits in those towns. So that's where we'll take that one. Thank you.
Your second question from Robin is, council should be congratulated on the introduction of early budget submissions. The question, which is to be answered by the CEO, will council publish the suitable redacted budget submissions on the council website or council meeting agenda to ensure that the community is made aware of the issues that have been identified across the Shire? CEO?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillors and Mr. Mayor and Council, I note that that the council receives a lot of input on budgets from a lot of range of sources. This community survey, this survey process has been in addition to lots of other things we have in play all the time. Anyway, we have people writing to us all the time and so on. And when we're able to have community forums, those things input the budget as well. So we get a lot of sources of information input to the budget. Now, this survey is just one of those. So it's really just gathering the input to the budget. And it's been a valuable piece so far. We've had something like 9 on 300 submissions there with lots of data, lots of raw data, lots of input. So it's not really the appropriate time to go through those and release those in detail, but we certainly will be summarising those and summarising the themes, analysing those and summarising the themes that come out of it. The appropriate time for that sort of looking at individual submissions comes later, and that's when we put the draft out for comment. And those submissions after it goes out for comment are all recorded individually, and they are shared, and we see those in far more detail. So not quite appropriate at this stage, but that stage is coming at the next phase.
Thanks, CEO.
But certainly they'll see a summarised, councils and the community will see a summarised version of all of the issues that have been raised.
The next questions come from Jane and Jamie Dowsley. First question is, public submissions to inform the Beechworth and Yakandanda parking strategy closed on the 29th of November 2021. A, when will the subjective data collated during the face-to-face drop-in sessions and the online survey be publicly available? When will the draft strategies be available for public review and comment? The Director, Infrastructure.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Jane and Jamie, for your questions. I think I'll answer both those parts together. We normally wouldn't separately put out the collated data. So the data that's been collated from the face-to-face drop-in sessions will be used to inform the strategy and will be summarised within the strategy. In terms of time frame, I can't give you an exact time at the moment. We've received just prior to Christmas drafts of both of the strategies, so they're currently being reviewed internally. The process from here would be that we would, pardon me, get those to final drafts, and then I imagine we would present them to councillors for their consideration before they then went out to community for broader comment. So, yeah, I think in a nutshell, the information that's been collated from the community would be summarised and brought in and inform the recommendations within the strategies.
Thank you, Director. The next question, on the 14th of November, they were informed during a face-to-face drop-in session at Yakandanda that the consultant's scope of works does not include a car parking demand study assessment. A, how can parking demand within Beechworth and Yakandanda be determined without the collection of objective parking data? B, how can a parking strategy be developed without understanding parking demand? Director, Infrastructure.
Thank you again. Look, very good questions. Unfortunately, there seems to have been a miscommunication or a misunderstanding about information. So I guess what you have suggested, I would say is not correct. The methodology for both strategies very clearly includes, and I'll read just from the methodology, amongst other things, parking occupancy surveys, parking supply and demand management, analysis of existing peak parking demands, and then development of recommendations and solutions, etc. So the scope of both strategies absolutely does include parking demand to be considered and understood as part of the development of any recommendations.
Thank you. The next question is from Christine Stewart. There's a number of reasons for the question that I don't intend to read out, but I'll just read out one part of it. The question is, how is the promotion mix decided? Read, councils engage, have your say on our new budget survey. That's a question for the CEO. And there's another question which says, did other Indigo communities have paid ads in their local newspapers or newsletters? I just think that they're separate questions. CEO?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I guess this is similar answer to the other one. The online surveys were one tool that we use for budget inputs, and so predominantly it's an online survey, this particular one. But we did go out with a whole range of ways of promoting that. So it was promoted primarily through social media, given that link back to the online survey, but we had sort of paid advertising on the social media. We also had a lot of mentions in the weekly update we had on our website. We did, in some cases, have posters in some shop windows. We also had some advertising in some newspapers. We spread it right around, and I think overall, I think when you see the results, we've had something like 300 different people inputting, which I think is quite a strong result. So it's been a good spread, a great spread of input. I couldn't say with my hand on my heart that we were in every newspaper and in every newsletter in the area, but we certainly got a fair spread right across them. And I think the results bear that out.
Thank you, CEO. The next recommendation is that standing orders be resumed. Would somebody like to move that? Moved by Councillor Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Price. Is anybody against? Carried. Item number 9, petitions. No petitions presented. Item 10.1, the January Finance Report. The recommendation is the Council accepts the year-to-date January 2022 Finance Report. So we'd like to move that recommendation. Moved by Councillor Croucher, seconded by Councillor Price. Councillor Croucher.
Just a general statement, like reading through the report, the bottom line states that the financial position is still favourable to the Q1 forecast. Now, with this in mind, I would like to recommend that Council accept the 2022 financial report.
Councillor Price. Would anybody else like to speak to this motion? Carried. Item 10.2, the Q2 financial report. The recommendation is the Council adopts the Q2 year-end forecast figures for both operating, as shown in the operating statement below, and capital, as shown in the Capital Works Monitor. Directs the CEO to report against these forecast figures for the remainder of the financial year. 3, notes the Q2 forecast full year unfavourable operating result of $220,000, and 4, directs the CEO to recoup the unfavourable result in the financial year, ensuring that the previously determined 2022-2023 in the financial year cash balance of 5.2 million is still achieved. I'd just like to say that there were a number of options available to councillors, and this is the recommendation. Would somebody like to move that? Moved by Councillor Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Croucher. Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, I really would just like to speak about the proposed new projects that we've got on, and will be interesting to see that I see we also have advertised for 2 project managers. So fingers crossed, these projects will all come to fruition. So we've got the land purchase that we did in Chiltern, changing places facility in Yakandanda, the Tangambalanga's Lions Den solar power, the Chiltern Athenaeum climate control, the Rutherglen wine loop, which is an amazing 5.1 million project, the Beechworth netball courts resurfacing, the Beechworth croquet surface renovation, and the local roads and community infrastructure grant round, which, yeah, there's quite a few things that we're doing in there. So a huge, big Q2 inclusion in that, and of course we do have to get our budget back onto we have to ensure that 220,000 is accounted for, and we make it up in the next year. So that's for the CEO to work at.
Councillor Croucher.
Very little, just to endorse what Councillor Shepherd has said. I too was very impressed with the new projects that look to be coming throughout our Shire.
Would anybody else like to speak to this motion? Councillor Horn. You're on mute, Councillor. You're on mute, Councillor.
Sorry about that. I just think it would be helpful if perhaps Director Greg Pinkerton could talk to that $220,000 unfavourable amount. I thought it was possibly to do with COVID situation, but perhaps if he could just talk to it briefly, please.
Director Pinkerton.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. As happens with any year, there's a number of ups and downs that we see in the financials throughout the year. So there's not any particular direct impact. It's a mixture of ups and downs. But what we've tried to do is pull out three, and I'll direct your attention to page 19 of the report. So we've pulled out three that these three are probably the major things that we've seen, and this comes to about 210,000. So first one being a bit over $70,000, where we received some income in the last year that related to this year. So we have the income, but it wasn't in this budget year. So that shows up as a variance. There's a bit over $80,000, which is a result of the planning team having to bolster their ranks with external assistance during a really busy time for planning, and a bit over $50,000 at the time the report was written, which relates to recent weather events, mainly flooding and storm damage. And so those three probably are the three main stories that you see in the financials.
CEO.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll probably just add to that, and in answer your question, Councillor Horn, it's probably fair to say that the $84,000 relating to planning is in a lot of ways COVID related, and I think we saw councils all across the state receiving a massive jump in their planning applications. Now, we do have some planning fees, but they go nowhere near towards covering the cost of providing planning services. So a lot of councils, and we did too, saw something like a 50% jump in planning applications. People cancelled their holidays suddenly and spent money on their house or renovations and things like that, rather than on other things. So we saw, I think, a COVID-related spike, which has been a big part of this story.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, do you wish to sum up?
Just that, well, our budget that we agreed on was 5.2 million cash, and it's to our credit that we're going to get it back to that in the next financial year.
Is that a question, Councillor? No. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 10.3, Instrument of Delegation Review Planning and Environment Act. The recommendation, in the exercise of the powers conferred in section 1888 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, Indigo Shire resolves that the instrument of delegation to members of council staff be varied as set out in the schedule. The members of council staff holding, acting in or performing the duties of the officers or positions referred to in the instrument as varied are to have the powers, duties and functions set out in the instrument as varied, subject to the conditions and limitations specified in the instrument. 3, the instrument as varied instrument comes into force immediately upon resolution of council on today's date. 4, the duties and functions set out in the instrument as varied must be performed, and the power set out in the instrument must be executed in accordance with any guidelines or policies of council that may from time to time adopt. Somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Price. Councillor Shepherd.
I think it says well in the report that until recently it wasn't a problem for all the delegations to go through our planning manager, but during the last 2 years, with the amount of the workload increase, with everybody wanting to move to our area, it's become a bottleneck. And so the changes being proposed share the day-to-day processing and operational delegations to the team leader and planning staff. So this allows for operational processes to be completed without waiting for the manager to review and approve them. And as part of this work, the risk of moving the delegation is being considered, and the high-risk decisions will still be done by the manager. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's a sensible delegation of responsibility. So yes, I'm happy to move that.
Councillor Price.
Yeah, I really applaud the staff for bringing this to us because, as it says in the report, normally we only get to review our instruments of delegation once a year, and I think that's in October. So it'd be a long time to wait when changes that can really produce results in terms of our effectiveness have been identified, why not implement them now? It's all been done with appropriate legal advice, and it really stacks up. And as Councillor Shepherd said, in a time where we are seeing such an enormous amount of planning applications, it's really important that we sort of streamline all of our processes and make sure that we're not duplicating different sign-offs and things like that. So again, I thank the staff for bringing that to us. It's quite responsive to do that, to identify something and not wait for the next instrument of delegation review. And I hope that it means that our planners can work more effectively.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher.
Look, hopefully this will speed up the process for planning permits and subdivision applications. I'm fully conscious of the workload of the planning department, and anything to make the process a little bit easier and quicker is certainly a bonus as far as I'm concerned.
Would anybody else like to speak to this motion? Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up? No. Councillor, I'd just like to say that you've all spoken very well, and it's all about streamlining the planning process, which they've got a massive workload and they're doing it quite well. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 11.1, the recommendation is the Council adopts the Indigo Shire Disability Action Plan 2021 to 2025. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Croucher. Councillor Price.
This document's a requirement under the Act, but I think much more than that, when I read this document, I see that we already do a lot of this work. It's already really well embedded, in large part thanks to the Officer Kate O'Toole and Kate Biglin and Carlene Lamana, who work very cooperatively with the Indigo Access Committee. This committee's got a really strong reputation within our council for being a great reference for us. And I think this is sort of all galvanised in this disability action plan. So it's a really great document, and hats off to those staff that have put it together, and thank you to anyone that's contributed.
Councillor Croucher.
The plan has been through, as far as I'm concerned, a correct process, that is initial consultation with the Community Access Committee, Council website, various links with the community through the Indigo Shire Weekly Update, customer service centres and libraries and posters. Now, having been a member of the Access Committee, I would like to congratulate the committee and council team, and in particular Kate O'Toole, the Ageing Health Officer, for such a very comprehensive action plan. It has been an absolute pleasure to be part of this make-up and to be part of this committee.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Price, would you like to sum up?
I've decided I'm going to go on a bit more about Kate O'Toole, actually. I don't think it can be undersold just how effectively she works with staff right across the organisation to make sure that access is really a strong consideration in every project, in everything that we do. And it's really clear that all of the links she has with all the appropriate staff, and that's fed back to the Access Committee. And again, it's all come together in this plan. It's a great document for us to work towards, and a real feather in our cap for Indigo Shire, I think.
Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 11.2, which is the Reflect, Recollect, Reconciliation Action Plan. The recommendation is the Council adopts the Indigo Shire Council Reflect Reconciliation Action Plan. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to move that recommendation? All right, do we have a seconder? You seconding it, Councillor Horn. You're on mute.
I can do, but I wanted to add something to it.
But you... and what's that? So do you wish to amend it or change it? We've got a motion on the table now.
Yeah, so that's why I put my hand down, because I thought it needed to be seconded before I did
All
my.
right, Councillor Goldsworthy had his hand up too. Are you seconding the motion?
I'll second it for discussion.
All right, Councillor Shepherd.
So the Reconciliation Action Plan is, I think, an exciting project. Well, not really a project. It's a plan that we've taken on for the last 2 years. We've been working on it. It came to us in October, and we endorsed it, and we chose. I was chosen, and Jenny O'Connor, which we'll have to look at now, to be part of the steering committee that will deal with this once it's approved. But it's then went off to Reconciliation Australia, and they've sent it back with with probably about 5 or 6 changes, small changes, and now it's come to us to adopt those changes as we've already seen the rest of it. So basically, this Reflect is about our organisation and how we are going to work to reconcile and to amongst ourselves, amongst the councillors and the staff. And we need this plan. This is the beginning of the plan. The next stage is we will go out to the community and work with other people on it. But to begin with, it's just us getting our act together around how we are going to reconcile within our staff and within our councillors, with having changing at the bottom of our letterheads. On the bottom of our letter, we're going to have our acknowledgement of country and what we're going to do during NAIDOC week and those type of council actions. So I really recommend this plan, and I think it's a very good plan, and I really appreciate the amount of work that's gone into it, especially by Carleen Lamana, who I know has, we've got a list of all the different Aboriginal community groups and Aboriginal groups that she's spoken to. So there's been a lot of input into this. So thank you very much, Carleen, for the work you've done.
That's Tom Goldsworthy.
No.
Councillor Horn.
Yes, I would like to support this recommendation, but I would like to add that Council places this draft document on public exhibition until 21st of March and invite public submissions.
All right, do we have a seconder for that motion or amendment? We'll call it an alternate motion. Councillor Price, are you seconding it? All right, Councillor Horn.
Yes, I just think this is an excellent move, but I think that it's...
Just before you go on, I'm just going to ask the mover whether you would be happy with that inclusion? No. All right. Councillor Horn?
Yes, as I was saying, I just believe that I think that our community should have the opportunity to see what this entails.
Just before you go on, Councillor, I'll have to ask whether somebody will second that. Seconded by Councillor Price. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Horn.
Yes, it's just for the public to see what's going on, so that we can have that inclusive reaction to it. Yeah, it's good news, and I think that people will embrace it, and I'd like them to understand what it actually entails.
Councillor Price.
I'll reserve my right.
I'd like to speak to the motion. Councillor Goldsworthy.
I think there is a positive element to putting it out to the public for any final discussion before it's fully adopted by us. I understand that it's the council actions and what we plan to do as a council, but you just never know what might come forward in relation to suggestions. It provides the opportunity, and it shows that we're giving the community every opportunity to provide input into this plan. So for that reason, I support it.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion?
Do I get an opportunity to speak against it?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
That's what I just said. Would anybody else like
Yeah,
to
okay.
speak to the motion?
Yeah, so my concern in sending it out to the community, and I'm all for community engagement, as everybody is very aware, it's my number one topic, is that we really can't change this plan now. So even if we get 100 people saying that they've got concerns or there's issues, or it's been endorsed by Reconciliation Australia. We've already changed it. The time to have done this was in the October meeting, to have sent it out then if we wanted to, but even then it's not it's relevant. It's like BHP sending theirs out to the community to look at. Like it's within their own organisation that they're looking at. So to send it out without really being able to change it seems to me sort of a bit not appropriate even. If there's a whole lot of changes that people expect, we're going to have to do the work all over again and send it back to Reconciliation Australia to be looked at again, to be endorsed again, because we can't change it once it's been endorsed. So even though I appreciate the idea about community engagement, I don't see by sending it out with them really not being able to make changes. I think it's not really honest.
Well, I'm not sure where you get that it can't be changed, because the recommendation is the council adopts the Indigo Shire Council Reflect Reconciliation Plan, yet you're saying, CEO, just put your hand down, I'm speaking at the moment. It hasn't been adopted by council. I'm not sure what you mean by we've endorsed the draft, but not this, the recommendations there.
That's true. And then when we endorsed it in October, it went to Reconciliation Australia for them to look at our whole plan. And they've sent back about 5 things that we should include and fix up. So it's sort of like we've got to the end of the process, of a 2-year process, that we could have at any stage said this should have community input. It just seems all of a sudden, like at the end of it, when it's a done plan, and it's a good plan. I mean, if the community want to look at it, I think they'll appreciate the plan, but I don't see how they're going to be able to change something that we within council, this is how we're going to behave.
It'll be coming back to council for adoption. That's the motion. However, you've spoken to a councillor. Does anybody else wish to speak to it? CEO, do you wish to join the debate?
I promise you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not joining the debate. I was just for clarity, the original motion was to adopt, and then the suggestion was we add consultation at the back end. I'm thinking a better amendment would be that council endorses it and then puts it out for comment, because if you adopt it now, and I think that's what Councillor Shepherd's saying, if you adopt it now, then you're not really accepting comment. So if council's of a mind to put it out to comment, then I think the better wording is to endorse it now and then you adopt later, if that's the way.
Are you happy to endorse, Councillor Hong, instead of adopt, to endorse? You're on mute, Councillor. Yes. I think that
sounds reasonable. Yes, I do. Yes, I do agree to that.
So do you wish to change that to endorses the Indigo Shire Reflect Reconciliation Action Plan?
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. Are you happy with that? Seconder, Councillor Price? Yes.
The one thing I would say about that, Mayor, is she did use the term draft.
Yes. Yes. So you're endorsing the draft, Councillor Horn?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that's not the actual plan. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Would you like to sum up, Councillor Horn? Sorry, Councillor Price.
I acknowledge that maybe this is too late in the process for this consultation, but I also welcome it. I think that some of it may inform the plan, or none of it may, but perhaps it goes to the RAP working group, or it can be reflected in different parts of our organisation. I just encourage people to engage with this discussion and engage with this document, and I hope that that's what happens it's a really great document. I'm pleased that we have gone to the peak body to help us with this plan. I'm really pleased with the list of stakeholders that we have engaged to date and some that we've subsequently identified. And I don't think that opening it up for some consultation will undermine that. I think that it will invite people to be part of the discussion, and I hope that's the case. Thank you for the staff that have done the work on it.
I'd like to sum up, Councillor Horn.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Price. I think your comments are right on the money. We're wanting people to embrace these things and to get away from that feeling that things are being done to us and that we're all part of these decisions. So I think this is a good plan, and I think we can look forward to a very positive outcome.
Just like to add before, and it's only a comment, that I don't think any councillor is against the plan, but I think it's important that we engage with our community. All right, I now call for the vote. All those in favour?
Can you read out that, is it still draft?
Yes. Yes. I'll just say all those in favour? Carried.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just clarify again process? So my understanding was we had a motion, we had an amendment. So I think we voted on the amendment, and the vote being carried now means that that motion becomes the original motion. And I think there needs to be another vote now on that as the original motion, just trying to get the governance right.
All right, so those in favour of the motion as it stands now with the amendment, all those in favour, raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Item 11.3, the draft Barnawatha Park Master Plan. The Council endorses the draft Barnawatha Park Master Plan and undertake further engagement to obtain additional community input. And we have a...
Excuse me, Mayor. If I could add on a sentence on the end of that, I'd be happy to move it.
Yes.
I should read at the end of the sentence, after input, and that the matter be returned to the council meeting in May 2022 for further consideration.
May 2022.
And Mr. Mayor, can we clarify that it's
Clarified, yeah.
Barmutha, not Barnawatha?
Not Barnawatha, Barmutha.
Would somebody like to second that motion? Seconded by Councillor Price. Is anybody against the motion? I'm sorry, Councillor Goldsworthy? No?
Look, given the quick indication we just got, I don't think anyone's against it, so I won't speak to it.
All right. Is anybody against the motion? Carried unanimously. 12.1, the January Capital Works Report. The recommendation is the Council notes the January Capital Works Report and year-to-date progress on the delivery of the Capital Works Program, and 2, the additional projects and funding added to the capital program since the first quarter. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Goldsworthy, seconded by Councillor Croucher. Councillor Goldsworthy.
The one thing I will say, and I'm pulling this out of 10.1, the financial reports, is that whilst we've spent an additional $1 million in comparison to last year, and the capital works budget is significantly more, we're 5% under our completion rate in comparison to last year on the spend. I know there's a number of reasons for that, but also in 10.2, you'll see some of the projects that are falling a little bit behind. So whilst the staff are doing a great job, some of the projects we'd like to see delivered, I think they're going to take significantly more time than what we'd hoped.
Councillor Croucher.
Look, just despite the COVID and delays on material, I can understand all these sort of problems that have blown out standard contracts and all that sort of stuff. I'm always pleased to see that the Capital Works program still continues to progress well despite all of these ups and downs.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? To sum up, Councillor Goldsworthy. Anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 12.2. Update to the Council Road Register. Councillor Goldsworthy.
I've just got a few additional things that I would like to input in there, if you could bear with me.
Yes.
It was an email that was circulated by Ian Ellett. I'm happy to adopt it as circulated. If you'd like me to read that out, I can do that. Okay, so point 1 is adopt the updated Register of Public Roads, February 2022. 2, note that the updated register retains the first 890 metres of Ellis Lane Staghorn Flat as an access road 1. And 3, takes into account the community feedback from the land owners on Ellis Lane in relation to the operation of the cattle yards and provides an exception to the normal requirements under local law number 4 for fencing across the road reserve to be removed in recognition of the historical agricultural use of the roadway and allows the gates on this part of the road to remain. That's it in its entirety.
Just like to ask the Governance Officer, do you have a copy of that email? Yes. So do we have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Yep. So the adoption of the Register for Public Roads is a requirement. We have had conversations with the land holders in Ellis Lane particularly, and some councillors were able to make a site visit. I think this is a practical solution to an issue for the locals where they're still able to use some gates to access some cattle yards. Hopefully it's a common sense solution. Yeah, and I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Shepherd.
I understand that our local laws are the law, but this exception really, again, is common sense. When there's 5 landholders using one set of cattle yards, I applaud them really for not all having to do a cattle yard each. It makes sense really that the historical use of those gates that keep the cattle within that space continue to be used. So it's certainly historical in use, and we wouldn't want to encourage others, but I think it should stay in place. Yeah.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Price.
A question to the director, if I could. I just note that the road register review hasn't been conducted since 2013. What's the predicted timeline for when that would be necessary? Again, I note that it says that the changes are minor, and so minimal change will be experienced by the public. So what's a reasonable time frame for when that process should occur?
Look, it's a good question. There's nothing stipulated in the legislation. Pardon me. Certainly, our road management plan has a scheduled review period, which is every 4 years. The legislation just says that we have to have a register. So, look, I think we would use judgment on when it's appropriate to bring it back. A lot of the time, there's administrative changes. There's things roads would come on board through. I suppose subdivision development. So when we take on a new subdivision, there's roads and they sort of come off maintenance, then they get added. And we treat that as fairly academic. Similarly, we build new footpath annually through our capital works program. So the register is just an update, it's a record that we would update regularly as required. So look, I'm not sure that putting it back in front of council at any particular frequency is necessary. I think this one, because there was a few changes, it made absolute sense to iron out a few bugs. But if it just went forward for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and we were just adding the bits of footpath that we'd built, adding the the sections of road that have been developed through subdivision and we've signed off, I'm not sure what would be gained by bringing it to council. So I guess my answer to your question is I don't know. There's nothing stipulated, and we would probably just exercise judgment at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Goldsworthy, wish to sum up? No. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 12.3, the Community Sustainability Grants Program 21-22. I'll just mention the names of the applicants. It's recommended that Council endorses the following distribution of $19,323 via the 2021-2022 Community Sustainability Grants Program. There's a Kiewit Catchment Land Care Groups, Waganya Progress Association Incorporated, the Lions Club of Beechworth, Yakandana Cemetery Trust, and Stanley Hall and Athenaeum Committee of Management. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Councillor Goldsworthy, seconder. Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Goldsworthy.
This grant originally came out of a budget submission by the Waganya Progress Association, trying to get work done, or solar work done, on the hall at Waganya, the recreation facility, I should say. And at the time, it was deemed that it wouldn't fit into a budget submission, but we should look at doing a grant program. So out of that, we decided to fund it. It has changed a little bit in the funding profile of the recipients, but predominantly it's been around getting some solar power onto our halls, community facilities. And you'll see from a lot of what's the grant recipients, that's still the main function. There is some money going towards education, which is great. So with that in mind, and some people who read this report closely might note just around the criteria and the lighting up of public facilities, the grant that's going to Waganya. It's a worthy cause and we should support it. It doesn't exactly match the criteria because it is a new lighting facility.
You've locked up a bit, Councillor.
To have to build should look at changing the criteria of the grant process for future years. The other thing that I'd like to see out of this is some sort of report on how successful it's been, so that we can gauge just the impact that it is having for local groups. So I'll leave it at that, but congratulations to the worthy recipients of the $19,323.
Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, congratulations. I love this $20,000 as it goes out into our shire, and I look at what the community are able to do with it. It's heartening. And I just wanted to add that Chiltern Athenaeum also put in an application, but in the meanwhile, they obtained a larger sum of money where that's going to what they were asking for, which was energy efficiency works at the Athenaeum will be covered with this grant. So really, those people that applied all got some money. So that's great news.
Would somebody else like to speak to this recommendation? Do you wish to sum up, Councillor Goldsworthy? Motion? Carried. Item 12.4, Beechworth to Yakandanda Rail Trail Section 5 construction tender. The recommendation is the Council varies the CEO's financial delegation in relation to contract PM 19/08001708 Section 5, Beechworth to Yakandanda Rail Trail, to enable approval of variations up to a total of $110,000. Somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Goldsworthy, seconded by Councillor Price. Councillor Goldsworthy.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
Councillor Price. Does anybody else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Shepherd.
We happen to bump into a few councillors happy to bump into the project officer at the time a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying, "Oh my goodness, with all this wet weather, everywhere we've dug on this part has sprung a new spring, and we've had to really do extra work." And I knew then that there might be a little bit of a variation. At least having done it in this really, really wet year, it's probably we're not going to have to worry about it when it does rain. But yeah, I think it's we need to get it finished, and that extra bit of variance I think will make is sensible.
Would anybody else like to speak to the recommendation? It's a one-off amount for a variety of reasons. Do you wish to sum up, Councillor Goldsworthy? Do you wish to sum up, Councillor Goldsworthy? No. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 13.1, Complaints Handling Policy and Customer Service Charter. The recommendation is that Council adopts the following: the Indigo Shire Council Complaint Handling Policy and the Indigo Shire Council Customer Service Charter. Somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Croucher, seconded by Councillor Price. Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, look, I just feel that customer service is certainly an important area for council, and the opportunity to even express dissatisfaction is also fairly important. And both these documents are a methodical way of summing up the complaints handling policy and the customer service charter. Very well done. So congratulations to the two. I found them quite easy reading. Thank you.
Councillor Price.
Even though these documents went out for public exhibition, there were no submissions received. But I think it's important for us to be aware of these policies as councillors, so that when people engage with us and have or haven't had a response, we can set out the appropriate timelines for them, and also be able to refer them to the complaints policy if we absolutely have to. It's a real part of our reputation, having a strong customer service presence, and it's really important that we have an appropriate charter and policy for those reasons.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher, do you want to sum up?
No, no more.
I'd just like to say that I've got the utmost respect for the council customer service staff. I think they've got quite a difficult job, and they show compassion, and yeah, I just think they do a great job, and never hear a complaint from anybody about them. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 13.2 is the draft social media policy 2022. The recommendation is that council endorses the draft social media policy 2022 and places it on public exhibition for a period of 2 weeks, and invites submissions until close of business the 8th of March 2022. Somebody would like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Price. Councillor Shepherd.
I'm just wondering if I'm able to moderate that to 30 days. I think it's in our community engagement plan. It's somewhere we've said 30 to 60 or 60 days out to community for engagement and for feedback.
All right, Councillor Price, are you in agreement with the 30 days? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Shepherd.
So this is just a 2-page document that is to be read in conjunction with the other policy that we've just passed, and it really just outlines exactly how our team will respond when there are positive comments, general inquiries, dissatisfaction, or incorrect and misleading information. So it's basically there for us to see and for the community to see what the response will be.
Councillor Price.
The last version of this policy that we had, I think, was from 2018, and the way we use social media has increased in that time and has changed as well. And so I think it's appropriate that our social media policy adapts to the way we're using it. and it's a really key communication tool for us now. That, along with the weekly update, I think it's a really effective communication platform to a lot of our community, and it's now really heavily relied upon. So I'm pleased to see this policy.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, do you wish to sum up?
Sorry, I was looking at the 2-page document that it just outlines the actions to be done. Of course, there's a whole policy in front of it that is to be passed. Please excuse me. That's what I'm going to sum up on. Thank you.
All right. In that case, is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 13.3 is a memorandum of understanding, collaboration with Berrigan, Moira and Federation councils. The recommendation is that council endorses the memorandum of understanding with Berrigan Shire, Federation Council and Moira Shire. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Croucher, seconded by Councillor Horn. Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, look, I'm all for this recommendation. As a councillor of Indigo Shire, I'm continually learning and the opportunity to mix with councillors from other shires to share ideas and such can certainly improve my knowledge, both educationally and socially. And the benefits for our shire to learn from other shires is great, I think. So I'm all for this recommendation.
Councillor Horn.
Yes, I think often our geography makes this very sensible move in that we have shared resources, etc., such as the River Murray, etc. And very recent times, Federation Councillor have doing a series of talks on the flood study that we can obviously take a lot of information from ourselves rather than financing it independently. So, yeah, I look forward to the opportunity to working collaboratively with these other shires, particularly Federation Shire, with their swimming pool and things like that. There are a lot of people over here who'll be able to take advantage of that. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense and I fully support it.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Price.
You always have to draw the lines on the map for where different boundaries are going to end, but certainly at the outer edges of our communities that they feel more aligned with some other people in other shires. And I think that it's really important for us to acknowledge that and to have open lines of communication with those other councils, because otherwise we don't fully understand and appreciate how some of our other communities work. A question to the CEO, will we be looking to any other memorandums of understanding in other areas of the Shire?
I'm pretty sure we will be. I won't speculate now who those councils will be until we work through that process. But just to note too that as well as the MOUs, the whole Northeast works really well together through the Hume Region Local Government Networks. We've got lots of collaborations going in any case. This was one opportunity to formalise one in the northwest of the Shire, but we've got a lot of collaborative arrangements already in place with Alpine Tawong, for example. We've got a lot of collaboration there without a formal MOU, but it wouldn't hurt us to have one soon. But also we've got a lot of collaboration going with the councils as well. So there's plenty going on in that space.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make a very brief comment that a couple of years ago now, I read a survey that was done in Corowa, and 50% of the people who stayed there visited Rutherglen. So I think it's important that we've got this mutual agreement. I think it's good for all of us, particularly tourism. Do you wish to sum up, Councillor Cratcher?
No, I think everything's been said. I'm certainly endorse this memorandum of understanding and look forward to meeting up with other councillors and discussing events that are happening in other shires.
Is anybody against the motion? Carried. 13.4, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation, Planning and Environment Act 1987. The recommendation is, in the exercise of powers conferred by Section 224 of the Local Government Act and other legislation referred to in the attached instruments of appointment and authorisation, Indigo Shire Council resolves that the members of council staff referred to in attachment 1 be appointed and authorised as set out in the instrument. 2, the instrument in attachment 1 comes into force immediately upon resolution of council and is revoked on the date the officers cease employment by council or until council determines to vary or revoke it. 3, the instrument referred to in attachments 2 and 3 be revoked. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Price.
We're seeing a lot of these recommendations at the moment as we need more and more planning staff. So welcome aboard, and it's just a process that has to come through a council meeting.
Councillor Shepherd.
We are seeing there are a couple of people. There are some people going off as well. So we're also revoking some statutory statutory powers. So farewell too to a couple.
Yes. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 13.5, which is for information only. Regarding contracts awarded under Chief Executive Officer Delegation, December and January. The following contracts were awarded by the CEO under delegation between 250,000 and 500,000 for the months of December and January. Was one for Longford Civil, which is Western Area Resheeting, for 281,000. Has anybody got any questions regarding that? It's for information only. Right, item 13.6, the Council Action Plan. The recommendation is the Council notes the Q2 2021-2022 Council Plan Progress Report. Somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Price. Councillor Shepherd.
So these are the council action plans that we've have underway, and as we can see, 63 actions are on track. 1 action is behind. 11 actions are completed, and 1 action is on hold. And I note that the action behind schedule is complete a review of council's planning scheme, which has been behind schedule for now 5 years. So that's interesting. But there are also some on the action plan that are down as not started. And I just was interested that figure isn't shown in this. So I'm just wondering how we're going to show that figure in the next quarterly review.
Yeah.
I'm asking the CEO of that, really?
Yeah, so my apologies, councillors. It seems that dot point's been dropped off on page 85. So if you note on page 85, there's a summary of whether they're on track, behind schedule, completed, or on hold. There should be an extra dot point there. Those percentages add up to about 80% or something like that, 78%. So there's 22% which are not started, and which doesn't necessarily mean they're behind schedule. They may well have been scheduled. And I noticed a number of them are scheduled for Q3 and Q4, so haven't been started, but they're not alerted as being behind or being a problem as yet. So I'm presuming that for the most part they are on track, but I just note that dot point was missed in the report, so I apologise for that. We'll make sure that's better next month.
Do you have any other questions, Councillor Shepherd? Councillor Price?
A question in the spreadsheet itself, Mr. CEO. Of those that are listed as not yet started, there's commentary alongside each one of them. Lots of them say, as you said, that they're due to start in Q3 or they're doing preparation work. Some of them, however, the comment doesn't match up with the how they're being categorised as not yet started. Can that be reconciled perhaps by the next quarter, I suppose?
Yeah, yes, they will be.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Does anybody else wish to speak to the motion? You wish to sum up, Councillor Shepherd? Anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 13.7, the informal meetings of councillors' records. The recommendation is the council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillor records. Bit of a procedural motion, moved by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Horn. Do you wish to make any comment, Councillor Price? Councillor Horn. Is anybody else wish to speak to the motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 13.8, Advisory Committee minutes. Recommendation is the council receives the unconfirmed Advisory Committee minutes. I don't intend to read it all out.
Just in relation to item 4.B, if I could add another.
Yes.
Yeah, if I could add another line to it, one that was sent out by a senior governance advisor, and it says 4B note 1, and it's noting that Councillor O'Connor resigned subsequent to the committee's recommendation, and the committee will be required to make a new recommendation.
Yes, could we have that added? Did the governance officer has that? I will read part of it out, not that part, but part 3 notes the following recommendation from the Indigo Community Access Committee is the Indigo Community Access Committee do not support the installation of equipment that does not meet the minimum compliance standards. The ICAC advisor council should seek to exceed the standard and provide the most accessible equipment to our community. Any design to replace the existing DDA compliant water fountain on Camp Street must meet AS 1428. Would somebody move that we accept the Advisory Committee minutes?
Yep.
Moved by Councillor Goldsworthy, seconded by Councillor Price. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Just that the advisory committees play an important role in giving us advice and putting up recommendations that we should act on. So we should support their recommendations when they're relevant to what we're trying to achieve, particularly in support of the council plan.
Councillor Price. Does anybody else wish to speak to the motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 14, we have no notices of motion. Do we have any council reports? The Mayor's diary is there if you have any questions. The decisions register is for information only. General business. Do we have any general business?
Look, if I could just raise a couple of things.
Yep, sure.
So the first one is more to do with council reports, and that's attended Under the Pines, which is a music event held in the Town Hall Gardens on Saturday night. It was under the auspice of council, and Sal Kimber played a very big part in it. It was her last hurrah with council. I just wanted to acknowledge the great work that she did on the night and the team of young volunteers, the youth. It was a very successful event. It was probably kicked off by up-and-coming young star called Asher Bright, who's a local student. So I just, a combination of things. One, a great event, well done to Asher, and sad to see Sal Kimber go. The second thing I wanted to raise is what you touched on earlier, Mayor Gaffney, and that's around Councillor Jenny O'Connor resigning from council. I just wanted, from my perspective, to acknowledge the contribution that she's made to council since October 2012. She's been the mayor for 4 years. She was on Rural Councils Victoria, the Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee, the Environmental Advisory Committee, the Hume Region Local Government Network, and many other committees over the years. I just wonder if it would be appropriate for us to acknowledge her service in some way, whether it's a letter or a certificate, just to say thank you and well done.
I'm more than happy to have a letter prepared, CEO.
Yep, if we could do something under seal, that'd be terrific. I'll move that motion.
Would somebody like to second that? Second by Councillor Shepherd. Is anybody against? Carried. Councillor Shepherd, do you want to speak?
Yes, I just wanted to speak. Jenny O'Connor is the reason the reason I nominated for council. I mean, people voted for me. She was very strongly pushing the importance of women coming onto council with her, basically. And so it's sad to see her go, because she's been a real mentor as a councillor who's been here for a lot longer. And I really appreciated the mentoring she did. But she's so well beloved by the community that I think the community is going to miss her as well. So I wish her all the best for the future, and thank her for all the work she's put into us as a council, but also into me as a councillor.
Thank you. Do we have any other general business? Councillor Croucher.
I'd also like to just spend a few words on Jenny O'Connor as well, if that's all right with you. I knew Jenny particularly on two plateaus. Firstly, as a fellow councillor, and also as her deputy mayor. It was great working with Jenny, but also as a community member. During the 4 years that I wasn't a councillor, I was a community member, and she was always available for issues and all sorts of bits and pieces as well. So to Jenny, I wish her all the best, and I hope to able to keep up a relationship with her and keep in contact with her. Thanks for everything you've done, Jenny, and good luck for the future.
Is there any other general business? Councillor Horn.
I'd like to talk about the developments in Main Street, Rutherglen. We have lots of exciting things happening. We actually have an electrical storm happening here at the moment. So if I go off the air, you'll know why. There's a great deal of money being spent in our town. There's some new businesses coming in, and it's pretty exciting. And all the more reason why we need to have a very good look and understanding of what's going to happen with the traffic in Main Street, which obviously remains a problem. The other issue that I would like to raise is the fact that our community is really hurting, both the community of Chiltern and Rutherglen, and further afield at Corowa and various other places were affected by the flash flooding. And, some type of community get together would really go down very well with our community. They need the opportunity to talk and to see how each other's going. We've seen some wonderful, wonderful community spirit happening with people supplying meals and accommodation and helping to take things to the tip, etc. But yeah, we need to get together as a community and be a community. And I'm very, very proud of the efforts that people have made, and some type of community get together, a casual thing where we can express our feelings and our relief, and perhaps ask them questions if we need to. That would be really the thing that we need to do.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. And I would like to mention that Councillor Horn's property suffered considerable damage during a recent storm and flood events. And I think it's really good that she was able to make the meeting tonight. She's been under extreme pressure. And thanks very much for coming to this council meeting and contributing the way you have. Thank you, Councillor. Do we have any other general business? There's no confidential business. I now declare the meeting closed at 7:49 p.m. It was a big agenda, a very lengthy agenda. It's the first council meeting we've had since December, and you've got through it very, very well. The next meeting should be in the council chamber. Is that right, CEO? According to the reports.
Mr. Mayor, according to the current settings after 11:59 on Friday night, we should be able to have a public meeting with subject to QR coding and vaccination requirements being satisfied and those sorts of things. We should be okay under the settings as they stand now. I know the next meeting's 5 weeks away, so anything can happen in between.
Our next council meeting's on the 29th of March. Thanks for your attendance. Good night.